Hello and welcome to my Royal Paladin Dual Knight deck profile for premium format. So to start with, we've got the V-Series starter, in this case is Ambrosius, but you can play anything of course because they all do the exact same thing. Next we have 4 copies of Dual Knight Salome. It's a restanding Vanguard. It also lets you call as many Dual Knights as you want from your hand to Vanguard circle. If you call 3, it lets you restand, so you can get a lot of attacks. This is very strong compared to past Royal Paladin grade 3s as well, which is important because this is the reason why Crystal Luster becomes insane in premium, because of a card like this. Also, if you place a unit over it, whether it's on Vanguard or Vanguard circle, you can basically give it 10k and a drive. This also includes strides, just like Crystal Luster Dragon, so you can give the extra drive and the extra 10k, thus making it a bit more pressuring. And then you've got 4 Ashleys. So Ashley lets you call 1 Dual Knight grade 2 or less from your deck. If it's on Vanguard, it lets you do 2 copies instead of 1. So it's still a good ride, even if it's a Vanguard based card, because, well, one thing is that Salome doesn't even do the restand unless your opponent's on grade 3. So sometimes if you're high rolling and you're going first, then Ashley is a good ride up, presuming you're not staying on grade 2. And also, if you place over her, you can counterblast 1 to give that unit a crit. That works on both Vanguard and Vanguard as well, so you can give your Strider crit if you wanted to as well. So very good pressure, gets you more attacks. Then we've got 4 copies of Lily. This is a really good card. It gives 10k to anything that's placed over it. So very good for your Ray Guards. When you're multi-attacking and you're worried about damage triggers, you can then just scale up and gain even more power. When she attacks, you can return 2 normal units from your drop zone to the bottom of your deck, so that you can soul charge 1, and she gains 5k, so again, keeping that power level going up, so your opponent actually has to put a bit more effort into guarding. It also sets up the soul as well, so you can use Ashley and Salome as well, so very handy for that. This is not as good on Vanguard, because if you're riding grade 3 on top of it and you decide to stride, then, well, it's a bit of an issue if you decide to stride because you're losing out on the 10k, but it's free anyway, so it's not the worst thing. And then we've got 4 Sybil. Sybil is much better to ride into generally, because you're calling a unit, so it doesn't have anything to do with whether or not you stride. And if you place over, you're just looking at top 3, looking for a Dual Knight grade 2 or less. Remember, none of these V-Series cards let you call grade 3s like Ashley. But we will get to a card that can get around to doing that. She's also good for filtering, so if you have a grade 2 or less, you can put it into the soul, and you can draw a card. And of course that's good because it helps you to set up soul for Dual Knights, Salome and Ashley. We play 4 Swordmans, good for grade 2 game, rushing. Also an extender as well, although it's a Sea Blast, so you have to be a bit careful with your resources. This deck is quite Cam Blast heavy. Like, the more Cam Blast you have, the more plays you can do, but you can't always expect to just have your Cam Blast whenever you want. Then you've got Eunice. Eunice is very, very strong, and same with Morvidius. So what they do is that when you're placing over these grade 1s, you basically get to draw a card. Although there's a catch with Eunice, because Eunice requires there to be no units in the opponent's column that's facing this card. So if it's free, then you can draw a card. Otherwise you have to retire. It's a bit like Blast the Dark. Your opponent can technically play around it by putting a card in the same column. Especially if you rode this and you're going to ride grade 2 next, your opponent can just put a card behind the starter to stop the draw from happening, but they will lose their unit. Whereas Morvidius will always draw regardless. It doesn't rely on the scenario of the field. Eunice can bounce the hand, which helps to fulfill Salome's condition, because Salome requires calling 3 from hand when she attacks, well, after she attacks even, to get the restand. And the bouncing from field to hand is good because it also soul charges 1 as well, and you're returning a normal unit to the bottom of your deck, of course. So bear in mind that if you had these, because you can activate the draw even when you place on Vanguard, whether it's like mid battle or whether it's like, you know, riding over as a Vanguard, you can just casually just place over if you draw into multiple copies of these, just to set up your drop zone, because some of these cards do require having normal units in your drop zone to get the soul charge off. So you can use these sort of just to purposely call over one by one just to build up your drop zone and meet those conditions. Morvidius has another ability as well, where basically if you have spare Cam Blast, it's not once per turn, so you can use it multiple times for as long as you have CB, and you can just give any unit 5k and you soul charge 1, also helping to set up conditions. Then next we have 4 copies of Dual Knight Christine, the premium exclusive card. So this is the one that lets you actually call grade 3s. So if you were to use Ashley or Sybil or something, you can basically just call Christine out, reveal grade 3 from hand, and then call your Ashley and do more attacks with it. Obviously in V they don't want people calling Ashley, but in Premium they're a bit less tight on things you're allowed to do and not do. And with Christine, you can also reveal Heal Guardians if to meet the condition for searching Jewel Knights. It's also good early game. So like when you brick and you don't have your grade 3, but you have your Heal Guardian, you can just reveal the heal and get Salome or Ashley onto the field, swing with it, and then add it back to your hand at the end of the turn. The thing is, you do need 3 or more other Jewel Knights that are rear guards, so it doesn't include the Vanguard or herself. So that means you need to have like, what, 5 Jewel Knights in the field basically? You'll end up with 5 on the field with this deck list anyway. So having a trigger hand is pretty bad because your triggers are mostly not Jewel Knights. But there is a card that's going to help in some of these bad scenarios. We've got one Cymbeline, so it's a tech. It's grade 1, which is why it's being teched in, because Sword Me can search it out as well. And it gives a unit 10k by resting it. You need to have 3 or more other Jewel Knights, of course, like a lot of these old school cards, except for Sword Me. But then we've got the Overtrigger, Amatanoa, because drive checks are good. And because of Salome giving drive to your stride, makes it even better, especially if it's Crystal Luster Dragon. You can do restand and have 8 drive checks, and then you can probably in some games get your Amatanoa off, and then just do even more attacks with drive checks. Obviously they'll be after your Salome has attacked or your Crystal Luster has attacked, so your early rear guards that you're probably poking to do some efficient, pressure, probably won't benefit from your triggers much, but the attacks later will. And then you got the 4 Draco Kids, Stratasys crits. So you really need this because you don't really want to drop your Salomes and you don't want to drop your Ashleys. So if you can keep your Ashleys in your hand, then that's good. But also having like spare Jewel Knight grade 3s in hand is always useful for meeting conditions for other cards. So you'd rather just drop the non-Jewel Knight card. Then you've got 4 draw PGs, and not the Jewel Knight version of Assault, just the regular Raw Paladin one. This is just for defense because we're not playing the grade 1 version. 3 copies of Bartram, which is a Jewel Knight crit. It only has 5k power, so it's not as good against Nightmare Doll Alice combos. But this is quite good with Christine, because if you're in the early game and you're lacking Jewel Knight units, at least one of those triggers is now a Jewel Knight. Of course you can play more Jewel Knights, but all the Jewel Knight triggers are 5ks, so you don't want to oversaturate. You want to just play the best ones and just hope with that, really. And then you've got the 4 Heal Guardians. It's a grade 3, so you can reveal with Christine. Also, it's better than pretty much all the G Guards combined, so you definitely want to play that, because most of the good G Guards are Blast, Royal, or Altomar specific. Then we've got 4 Crystal Luster Dragons. You can cut this down. I'd say like 2 or 3 copies. 4 is too many. You're never going to reach 4. The idea is that you're just going to stride over Salome or Ashley, inherit the ability, and have more drive checks. And then you've got the GB3. Because it's a multi-attacking deck, the GB3 is devastating because it actually forces 3 cards from the opponent every attack, unless they're G-Guard, and then they can get away from it. So it's very hard to guard against a GB3 Crystal Luster turn. Very difficult. Then there is 4 Evangelines. Evangeline gives 3k to everything. It's free, no Can Blast cost. So if you're running out of Can Blast, then you can just fall back on this. Crystal Luster can flip anything, so you can always flip Evangeline with this. That way, when you go into this later game, you would have already scaled up, because she gives 3k for every face-up copy of her in the G-Zone. Then you've got the 2 Knight of Twin Swords. So this lets you attack and Superior Call grade 2s, if you have Can Blast for this one, that is. So you're helping to set up your field, and you also give 5k for every face-up unit as well, just like Evangeline, although this is the generic, based on generic G unit, so anything can be face-up, whereas Evangeline is more specific, which is why with Crystal Luster, or even this card for that matter, you'd rather flip Evangeline, because only she's specific to having herself face-up. He also, he's very good all in all to have access to, but because of CB cost, and you may not always have CB, we've got Altomar, which is the free version of it, and it gives 5k. Of course it doesn't scale, it's just straight up 5k, but it can give the front row the 3k power, if I remember correctly. Yes, so it can give your front row 3k as well, which is a bonus, but this is ideal when you're just out of counterblast and you have hardly any field. So when you're getting cornered, these are the sort of strides you start going into in those extreme scenarios. You got Laser Guard Dragon, which is a 20k shield if you have a grade 2 on the field. Then you've got Igraine, which is 20k shield by Soul Blasting 1 and being on Brave. So they're not very good, of course. They're very easy to miss, basically. Then you've got Maskell. If you have anything on your front row, you can get 10k shield. This is one of the better ones, but it's Generation Break 1, so you won't be able to use this if you ride up first. So that's just something really important to take into account. And then you've got Cold Burn, which is basically gains power for every card in your opponent's hand. I think it's every 2 cards. Yeah, 5 keep every 2 cards. So if your opponent attacks with Vanguard, you just use that to get a bit more power. The raw power and G guards are just generally not that good, which is why we're playing stuff like Cold Burn. You can also play Andragus, which requires 2 grade 2s on the field, and it's continuous, so you can't intercept and maintain that power. Just bear that in mind. But yeah, I'd probably say just take out maybe one of the Crystal Lost Dragons and put in Andragus. I don't have Andragus yet, but that's always a card to put in as well. You could potentially play Dismal, but I don't think Dismal is that needed in this deck. I could be wrong. I maybe just haven't had the experience yet to run into a situation where I need Dismal for this deck list, but you can always consider it in the future list, or depending on what the current format is like. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that video. Let me know below what you've been doing with your Draw Night decks, and I will see you later. Goodbye.